My name is Joel Johnson. I'm an advisor consultant with Hartford Funds, and I work with the Navigation Group on more than just investments. We work on matters such as the quality of life, which brings us to our presentation, which was put together by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Age Lab. But before we get going, I would like to hand over the meeting to Carlo of the Navigation Group.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're excited to bring you this program. Eric and I both had the opportunity to go to MIT and experience this program from the actual team that did the research. And we found it was really valuable to take a different slant on how you look at retirement and think of maybe some of the questions you don't always think about when preparing for retirement. So we hope that this benefits you as much as we think it will. And I'd like to pass it off to Eric to take us to the next step.
Thanks, Carlo, and thank you too, Joel, for your partnership. Today, we're going to have Tom Barrett, who's the Managing Director of Applied Insights for Hartford. This is a really great curriculum. He's a tremendous speaker, and we're really thrilled that he could join us today. And we want to thank again all of you. We know your time is valuable, and we hope that you find this presentation helpful. Should you have any questions after today's presentation, feel free to follow up with Carlo and I directly. And with that said, Tom, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Barrett, and I'm a managing director of Hartford Funds Applied Insights team. I've been with Hartford Funds now for 15 years. And typically in my role, I am up in the air. I'm traveling around the country. I'm usually in 3 or 4 different cities a week. I'm sharing research and insight with financial advisors and clients like yourselves from a truly unique partnership that Hartford Funds has with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and their Age Lab program. And those researchers are going to be bringing us our discussion today titled The Quality of Life. Now, before I jump into what all of that means, I do want to give everyone a little bit of a background about the MIT Age Lab, who is fueling the research, and a little bit more about them. So the Age Lab, it's founded in 1999, and it is located up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's part of MIT's School of Engineering. And they're sharing resources from all over the campus. They're working with the Sloan School of Business, departments of architecture and design. They're working with data scientists and engineers. There's a core of over 40 researchers, and all of them are really focused on one goal. And that is the studying changes in demographics, changes in lifestyle trends, changes in technologies. How is that shaping the way all of us are making consumer-facing decisions? And I want to give you all just a brief example of how they're doing their research in a unique and interesting way. In fact, one way they conduct research is by utilizing a bodysuit. And the bodysuit has a name. Its name is Agnes. That actually stands for something. They love acronyms at MIT. It stands for Age Gain Now Empathy System. And hopefully you're catching that key word in there. It's empathy. It's critically important. Do you understand how it is that I feel? And so this is how this bodysuit works. It has weights and straps in the arms and legs, and you can barely move your limbs. Then they put on this neck brace, and it makes it very difficult to move your head. You put on weighted gloves that will simulate arthritis. And I don't know if this is sounding pleasant to anyone yet, but I'm not done, because they do have these goggles that can simulate a number of degenerative eye conditions. And I can take anyone that's listening today and put you in the Agnes suit and dial it up and make you feel like you're 85 or 90, 95 or 100 years old. But this really is important, because at the end of the day, MIT says we have a little bit of a longevity crisis in our country today. And by that, they mean we're all greatly underestimating our own life expectancies. And on top of that, we all have a greater expectation in terms of quality of life in retirement than our parents or grandparents before us. And that's where this topic today comes in. So when we're thinking about retirement, a lot of the times the big question is, where do you begin? And I want to use this analogy of putting together the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. So I want to ask everyone, if you were going to sit down this afternoon and attempt to solve a puzzle, what do you think would be that really important first step to take? And a lot of times when I pose this question, I get answers such as, making sure that we get the corners. I need to make sure I find all of the edge pieces. Perhaps I'm going to organize the pieces by color. And I would argue that those are all really important steps. But I might suggest that the most important step is actually to take a look at the picture on the front of the box. And this is important because it might be a heck of a lot easier to solve the puzzle if we know what it is we're trying to solve for. And I relate this a lot to the pieces of the retirement puzzle. Throughout our lifetimes, we're collecting these pieces. We're collecting stocks and bonds, 401ks, possibly for multiple different jobs, or 403bs if you're a teacher, mutual funds, annuities, all of these important components. And sometimes we collect all of these pieces without really pausing to stop and think about how are all these pieces fitting together? And does it form that picture, that vision of my retirement future that I desire? And that's why today I'm going to go through our agenda here. And then that's just talking about your own personal agenda as it comes to preparing for this phase of life. And then 3 important questions. MIT says anyone over the age of 45 should be asking of themselves or a loved one that can be predictive of a future quality of life in retirement. And then finally, we're going to touch on this idea of intentional investing. So first, the personal agenda. And I did bring up the fact that it is so important that we think and prepare for this important phase of our life, but not enough people are giving a time and attention to this matter. And a lot of that has to really do with the volume, the velocity, and the complexity at which life is coming at us today. It's greater than ever before. All the balls that we're juggling in the air make it hard for us to pause and really spend even a few minutes thinking about these critical factors. If we think about volume, just take a look at the bubbles on the screen around us. We're juggling work, home engagements, our spouses, getting around and shuttling the children around, education, faith, and you see this one bubble for self, which is oftentimes overlooked. And then we think about velocity. Technology has certainly been a blessing because it's absolutely convenienced our lives and increased our productivity. But if you think about it, it's created this information overload. It's really decreased our time to think. And in fact, as technology advances, so do our expectations, and changing standards are something that we are certainly dealing with. And then finally, complexity. Yes, it is a good thing in many ways that there are more choices for us, but that means more decision making and oftentimes more difficult decisions. And oftentimes there's changing standards. As soon as we think we have all of the answers, they change the question. One example I love to give is if we think about the food pyramid that we were all raised on to say this was the pinnacle of how to eat correctly. Well, now it's called My Plate. In fact, the food pyramid is really now considered how not to eat. So there are always changing standards. But here's the bottom line. I mentioned a bit of a longevity crisis we're facing, but here's the data. The data shows us that a couple in our country today, age 65, the probability that at least one will live to age 95 hovers around a 43% probability today. And so it's important for everyone to think, reconsider how they frame this phase of their life, from just thinking about preparing for 20 or 30 years of retirement. But we really need to be preparing for 20 or 30 years of healthy aging during this period of time. And that's really why MIT have developed these 3 questions. Now, folks, if no one has ever seen any of the MIT Age Lab content before, I'm going to warn everyone on the front end here. When I reveal these questions to you, you might feel a little underwhelmed, particularly if you're thinking about the source of where these questions are coming from. These questions might look a little elementary to you. You might be scratching your head, but I assure you there's a method to their madness here. These questions were designed to be simple on purpose. They're really icebreaker questions to get the conversation started. And once we peel back that onion, a lot of discussions and information can be addressed. So let me reveal these 3 questions. So here they are. Who will change my light bulb? How will I get an ice cream cone? And who will I have lunch with? MIT says everyone over the age of 45 should be considering these 3 questions. So let's think about the first one. Who will change my light bulbs? This is all about aging in place. 90% of Americans say they want to age in place in their own home, so that probably won't surprise a lot of people. But how many have given even a few minutes thought, time and attention to the modifications or services that might be required in order to be independent in that home throughout our lifetime? And by the way, folks, if we think about what the numbers say, Nearly 45% of women over the age of 75 will be living alone, and around 25% of men. So if we want to maintain our independence, this is an important question. Number two, how will I get an ice cream cone? And this question is all about access. How do I maintain access to the simple things in life that give me enjoyment? If I have to hang up the car keys, do I still have the ability to get around to the places I want to go? And you'll notice the question isn't how will I get to the doctor or the pharmacy? Yeah, some of these important locations certainly will find a way, but those simple things in life can be really important. And if we piggyback on that, the final one here is who will I have lunch with? And this is all about social connectivity. And this is critically important because MIT says that Americans are facing an epidemic that they believe could be worse than loneliness, or sorry, than smoking, and it's loneliness. So we'll touch on all three of these questions. So let's talk about this first one. Who will change my light bulbs? Well, let's think about for a second, the average out-of-pocket expense for an American over the age of 65. I have this pie chart broken down, and folks won't be too surprised here to see that the number one, by far, out-of-pocket expenditure on a month-to-month basis is housing. So I mentioned that question about us all desiring to age in place. And I'm going to pose a bit of a question to everyone. And by the way, this is a gotcha question. I don't anticipate everyone to know the answer. But if I were to pose the question, if anyone knew what the average width of a wheelchair was, I'd probably stump a lot of people. And that's fair because it's something we really wouldn't think about unless us or a loved one would have to be utilizing one. Now, if you went on Google, the answer is around 30 to 32 inches. Now get this, the average width of a doorway in our country is 28 inches, and the average home in our country was built around 1975. And so as I mentioned here, if we want to be living in our homes and we will be living well into our 90s or beyond, we have to think about some of these issues in terms of home maintenance, housekeeping, how am I going to get the goods and services that I need? I want to introduce you all to an idea here. There's actually an industry of contractors. They're known as CAP specialists. That stands for Certified Aging in Place Specialists. And these are contractors whose job it is really is to provide home modifications to aging seniors that want to remain independent in their home. I'm going to show you all the top 10 design trends for aging in place. And I want you to kind of think about what a theme is that you're seeing as I read these off. We look at a level entryway to get into the home, living on one floor, kitchen and bathroom improvements, storage within easy reach, more drawers, doors that go away, lower threshold tubs and showers. If you think about it, really all of this is designed to prevent a fall. Because what that usually indicates is that a moment of crisis has struck, one that we really hadn't considered, and that's what causes us to really go down the path that we hadn't planned for. And MIT does say it's likely you'll move more times after the age of 50 than you did between the ages of 18 and 49. And a lot of times that's due to the fact that we really hadn't thought about some of these issues in terms of aging in place within our home. Make sure to ask your financial advisor. They'd be happy to help you get more information on how you could find out if there is a CAP specialist within your community that can come and assess the home. You know, one other idea I give in this area is around a piece of technology. So let's just imagine for a moment that you have a nice half-acre backyard and you've been maintaining that property for the last 30 years. And all of a sudden, that becomes more difficult to do. This could be one of those crisis points where we say, have I gotten to the point where I can no longer manage my own property? Do I need to reconsider the location where I'm living? If we think about the future of technology, it's going to benefit us and convenience us in a number of ways. And one way is, if you think about this, there was a piece of technology known as the Roomba, the autonomous vacuum cleaner that can take care of our floors and carpets within our home. But they now have an autonomous solar power lawnmower. And this bad boy can cut half an acre of grass on one solar charge. And hopefully it's avoiding small children and pets along the way. But if you imagine for a moment, now we are able to continue to maintain that property. It could make the difference between having to reconsider where we live. So I do want to make a quick mention here. We have a tremendous resource you can find on hartfordfunds.com under Investor Insights. You'll see the MIT tab, and we have put together a workbook on technologies that can assist us as we age. And that's something you might want to take a look at. So our number 2 question here, how will I get an ice cream cone? If you think about the COVID-19 pandemic for a moment, back in March of 2020 and in the early stages of the outbreak, it became very difficult for us to get to the grocery store, to get to the pharmacy, to get to the doctor. And these are some of those access points maybe we had taken for granted, and all of a sudden this became a challenge. Well, I'm here to tell you that if we are living well into our 90s, access to these same things can again become a challenge. But when we think about access, it's really important that we set our priorities, because if we know where we want to get to, it's important to know what we want to do. And that's why MIT has referred to this, what they call the rule of 8s. If we can better understand and discuss with our loved ones where we're educated, right? Because that can help really to understand the foundation of who you are, where you recreate, what you do for fun. And this is all about what you're doing and who you're doing it with. Congregate is certainly much of the same. And then donate. And then if we think about donate, this really isn't just about your money. This is all about also about your time. What are you passionate about and willing to give your time to? So if we think about these priorities and the rule of 8s, it can actually help us break down our average out-of-pocket expenditures. And I'm going to show you all the wheel here in a moment. So if we think about entertainment, and the categories that this could fall into would certainly be congregate and recreate. That takes around 5% of our budget. And then we have cash contributions coming in here at around 5%. I would put that at donate. And sorry, folks, I think I missed one there at food. Food is at 13%. And I would really break this category down into congregate and recreate as well, because it is said that we will eat in around 60% of the week and out around 40%. So that could certainly be you out spending time with your friends and family. But here's the thing. The second most expensive out-of-pocket expense is actually transportation. It's not healthcare, which surprises a lot of people. But to fuel, to maintain, to insure that large sedan, it can cost around $11,000 a year. And get this, folks, there's actually a spokesperson for the AAA. His name was Michael Green. And he said that those that have lost the ability to drive are 2 times more likely to suffer from depression and 5 times more likely to enter into long-term care, as opposed to their counterparts that are able to remain behind the wheel. And so I just want to give you all a quick idea here, and that is around a ride-sharing technology. Uber or Lyft might be some popular names you heard of. And I think these are important technologies that can benefit an aging population. However, very few seniors have really taken out their smartphones and dialed up an Uber themselves. In fact, the number stands around 7% for those over the age of 65 have ever hailed their own Uber ride. And I understand the hesitation to that. Many folks aren't really wizards on their smartphone to begin with. And now I'm asking you to download an app. It's called Uber. Then you need to give them all of your personal credit card information. They're going to store that and keep it. And then they're going to send some stranger out to your driveway. They're getting on your property. They're shoving you in the backseat of your car. You don't know who they are or where they're taking you. I know that could be a tall order. However, I do really think it could be an important piece of technology to know about. I'll give you a for instance. My parents live 3,000 miles away from me. They're actually out near your neck of the woods in California. I'm out here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I can't just hop in the car and take my mom or dad to the dentist or the doctor or the store if they need that help. I definitely thought it was important they know about a service like Uber or Lyft. And so what MIT tells us, it's really important that we make sure to educate those that we care about these type of benefits, and we connect them to the resources that can help. But it's also important that we excite and delight them along the way, because having that experience can really help to break down the barriers that were put up in the first place. And so the example I'll give is with my own mother. I had to convince her that this wasn't as scary as she thought through an experience. There was a time we went out to dinner and we had walked out to go to dinner. And then later that day, as we're eating, all of a sudden the heavens open up, it starts pouring rain. And this was my time to shine. I'm going to demonstrate to my mom how Uber works. I take out the phone, I show her the app, I show her the driver that's coming. There's the picture, there's his rating, there's his history of working with the company. The car shows up right away. We hop in. The driver was delightful. My mother had a tremendous experience. She's like an unpaid endorser of the company now. And I am just happy to have that peace of mind that she is familiar with and comfortable with the platform if she ever needs to utilize it. So let's move on to this third and final question. And this one's all around who will I have lunch with, or really social connections. And this one's really important because, as we often tend to retire, oftentimes we will lose sight of the community, friends that we were gathering because they were so focused around the workplace. And in fact, I'll share with you all, this is a little bit of a scary statistic, but when we're working full time, when we're working 40 hours or more a week, we're consuming around 80 minutes of television a day. However, that number skyrockets for those over the age of 65, no longer working in any capacity. That number is hovering around 260 to 270 minutes a day. So really the end of work can lead into the beginning of isolation and depression if we don't find ways that we're going to be filling that time, and who will be filling that time with. And if we think about beyond that, there's another complexity that is going to be gripping hold on the boomer demographic and beyond. And that is the fact that more and more often we're living in more suburban and rural locations. And that means the children, which are future caregivers, just like with my family as a for instance, are often in a very difficult proximity to help. And on top of that, there are fewer and fewer caregivers, and this trend will continue into the future. In fact, the birth rate of 1.6 children for every 1,000 adults, it's the lowest in the history of our nation today. And so what does that all mean? It's important that we maintain our social networks. There's a cartoon here on the screen that makes light of this situation with a husband and wife couple. The husband says, at last, the kids have grown up and now there's time for us. And the wife replies, great, you stay here and mind us. I'm going to go out and get a life. And she will, because if you haven't connected with your spouse on what you'll be doing and who you'll be doing that with, what we'll be doing together, what we will be doing separately, what researchers have found is there's oftentimes a little bit of a difference in terms of what that vision of this time really is. And women tend to do a much better job than men of maintaining their social connections outside of the workplace. So let me give a couple of quick ideas. One is maybe you've heard of Match.com, but there's actually a service called Stitch, Stitch.com, SITCH. And this is like the Match.com for those over the age of 55. But it's not just about dating. However, that is a component on this site. It's really about spending time together. It can be on a completely platonic basis. Imagine there are like-minded people in your community. You want to get out for a hike. You enjoy jogging. There's going to be an art installation in town, some type of music festival in the park. Whatever the case might be, you can find people from your demographic with your similar interests to connect. You get off the couch, get off the computer, and go out and do real things with real people. Another suggestion that MIT recommends, if you want to ensure that you never outlive your social connections, it's important to make sure to surround yourself with younger generations. And one idea they've posed is around youth mentorship programs. In fact, the AARP currently has a youth mentorship program that can be conducted through online Zoom technology, where you can share your experience, expertise, culture, carrying ability, and rub off and have an impact in a positive way on somebody that could really benefit from it. But when we think about what we'll be doing with our time, it's important to understand that there is a distinct correlation between our mental and physical health and the amount of times we socialize on a given day, week, month, or year. And that's why creating that strong social network is so important, making sure to have a plan. We certainly have some great information. Again, speak with your financial advisor if you'd like further reading from MIT on some ideas around activities and leveraging people in the community. And so, folks, I'm going to round out this pie chart around our average expenditures here, and showing you all here, healthcare is certainly number 3 behind technology, or transportation rather, and then the all important other representing the last 15%. So what does all of this really mean? If we think back to that jigsaw puzzle and that vision of our retirement future that we're trying to solve for, this is how I would really like you all to think about this. There's 2 ways to plan for retirement. There's the quantitative side, and that's the stocks and the bonds and the cash, assets and liabilities sticking to the facts. And MIT says that that's extremely important. It just might not be the complete picture. Think about that qualitative side of planning. Think about these 3 questions. Where am I going to live? How am I going to maintain access to the things that I enjoy? And who will I be spending that time with? If we can answer those 3 questions and have a discussion with those, our loved ones, our financial professionals that can assist us, it makes solving this quantitative side so much easier. So with that, folks, I'll just leave you all with a quote from one of my favorite philosophers. His name was Yogi Berra. And Yogi once said that the future ain't what it used to be. And at Hartford Funds and MIT, we wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. And that's why we'll continue to bring this type of unique research and insight to you all. So with that, I want to thank you for your time and attention, and hope you have a pleasant rest of your day.
Thank you for that great course, and thank you for helping our clients understand different ways to look at retirement. It's always nice to bring these type of unique programs that Eric and I are privileged enough to be a part of throughout the country and throughout the universities. We'd like to thank everyone for attending today. And if you have any questions, friends, family, people you feel that are important to you, are important to us, please have them reach out to carlo@navigationgroup.com or eric@navigation.com. And we look forward to all seeing you in person soon. Eric, any closing comments?
I just wanted to again thank all of you for joining us today. We know your time is valuable, and very much thank you to both Joel and Tom for your partnership in this. As we mentioned, if you have any questions, follow with us directly, and we're going to also attempt to get a replay of this for maybe your friends or folks who are not able to join today who you think might be benefited by this. And with that said, thank you again, and we hope you have a wonderful week.